Oh, let's go fruit.
Are you in the community group? Is that where you're live?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Hold on. I normally stream it live on my Facebook, but if I do that, some people can't actually see it. So
yeah, that's why I was curious, because I posted the community group for them to join that.
How to make sure that it's working. That's the most important thing.
Yep, you're there.
Okay, I think we are live. Hey guys, do me a big favor. If you guys can see this, if you guys can hear us, let us know that all is good and we're going to get started. Let's wait one more second. Let me get some water and then we're good to go. Ladies.
We should have your husband on with us.
All right. He's helping out his work's desperate because I haven't been able to replace him. So he's helping them out here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's a nice guy like that.
He is,
yeah,
for sure. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Right, good.
It's nice to have that choice though.
Yes, it is. Best of all worlds, right?
Yes.
Right, good to go. We're live with a very, very good and special girl for us, Danielle, who has done tremendous work in Elite and in the objection box. What we want to do for the next 20-30 minutes is just hear a little bit more about where she's from, what she does, how she ended up in our mad little world that we call the objection box, the family, the community, the Elite, and all of the rest of the stuff. So without further ado, what I would like to do, I would just actually like to hand this over to Francine and Danielle will give us a bit of a rundown of who she is, where she's from, and what she actually does and how she ended up with us, which we're still amazed by. But anyway, say the beat. Go for it.
Sounds good. So I'm Danielle. I'm a holistic nutritionist in Canada. So I help families of kids with primarily eczema, but also asthma and allergies. So kids that are suffering pretty bad, and help their families get them healthier again and give them a better life. And I've been doing this for about 3 years online in the online space now. I've been through lots of different programs. And, my thing is I'm a coach. I love to help my clients. That's where my passion is. But I also, being an entrepreneur, I also have the wholesale side of the business too, which has never been my strength. It's never been something that I've really enjoyed. But it's been a necessary part of my business. So it's meant that I knew I had to develop these skills and really work on these skills to take my business to the next level and really achieve the goals that I wanted for my family. Was one of the big reasons why I do what I do. So
pull you back actually, because it's really important what you just said. You are an entrepreneur, you wanted to grow a business, you wanted to do great stuff, you wanted to help a ton of people, which you absolutely do. You said one key thing there and you said, I don't like sales. Why don't you like sales, or why didn't you like sales?
Yes. Yeah, I think it just, for me, it was kind of like one of those things that I had to do. And I think that the big thing for me is not liking the challenging. It was a hard part for me. So there's a lot of like inner stuff that I still have to work on it. It's not like completely gone, but it's getting there. I'm getting better at those things. So that was a really big part for me that I found challenging, was to challenge people and to kind of, get them out of their own way so that they could actually help their kids. So that was a big thing. And yeah, I think just, it wasn't something that ever really was natural for me. Like it's just not my personality and what I kind of like to do. So I found that hard, right? Because it was something that just didn't, a lot of things come, like I'm able to do things quite well. And that was one thing that I was just felt like I couldn't ever master. It was kind of like that one thing that was holding me back in my business. So it made me kind of dread it. but it's been better. It's been a lot better. And I've seen the results of that, over the last 6 months or so.
Very good. Can you build a business without sales?
No, I don't think so. Unless you're like a completely referral based business, but I would, think that that's essentially sales too, right? So there's always some level of sales that's going to be involved in a business.
Yeah. Why, I should say, where did you get to before you looked at sales and if as a full-time kind of like, I got to make sure this is correct. Where did you get to in your business?
In terms of like just the success of my business, you mean? Like how was
the amount of time it took, the frustrations that you faced on a daily basis, like what kind of was the tipping point for you to say, I need to look at my sales in order to help me, number one, grow the business, number one, obviously reduce the time that I'm putting into the business, and number three, as a start point to actually give me a launch to kind of push on.
Yeah. And I think that was a big one for me was the amount of time that I was putting into things, because I haven't been, it's been mostly me in my business for quite a few years. And I've, started hiring people. I had a VA working for me and doing help there, but time was a huge factor because I was the one doing all the sales calls, doing all the background work, coaching all the clients, writing all the content, doing all the marketing. And I felt that was a big part of it. Like it was taking up a lot of time was one of the factors. So I wanted to get more efficient. And I didn't have like a horrid close rate, earlier on. It was around 40, it was sitting around 40%. So it's not like it was terrible. I build up a lot, like I spend a lot of time building a lot of connection with my people, but I wanted to get more efficient because one of the big things for me is balancing my life with my business. And, I think we had talked about this a lot, Bill, the first time we spoke was, I'm that system breaker. I don't want to work that 9 to 5. I want to, I pulled my kids out of school. I homeschool my kids. So that was a big thing for me. It was like, there's a lot on my plate and I needed to be super, super efficient with what I was doing. So I wanted to get better and not end up not spend so much time trying to make that same amount of money so I could be more efficient at that. And two, my heart's really in this as well. And I think seeing that a lot of things were being left on the table and a lot of families weren't helping their kids because I couldn't get out of my own way and, help them make the better decision for their kids and see
that's really
that maybe
important.
they were holding that up.
That's really important what you just said, because what you just basically, in my interpretation, is that I'm not best serving the people that I'm speaking to because I'm not where I need to be. And most people, we see it, Francine, all the time, don't we? No, it's the lead's fault. No, it's, it's just bad marketing. No, they were just never going to buy. Or we have people at the front of shit now, where they're disqualifying people before they even have a conversation with them, where they're just basically starting out everything that it is without even figuring out, can you actually help the people? And it's actually doing more disservice to all of the great people that you can actually go and help, that you just don't have the bottle to actually sit and actually help that person. Or you don't have the actual skill to be able to help that person get out of their own way. So I think that's really important because we see it all too often now, Francine, people trying to make sales easier. It's not easier. You just have to get better. The game is not going to, the game doesn't get easy because you're shit. The game shouldn't get easier because you're not good.
Yeah.
Gotta level up.
Yeah. Like one of the things that Bill said, that's so true, right? Like, and as a salesperson, it's like your livelihood, right? And so for you as a business owner, I'm curious because I've seen plenty of business owners who didn't even have like a huge lead flow, but they despise sales so much that they're like, I'm just going to bring somebody on because I don't want to deal with it. So kudos to you for being scared, having it, knowing it was a challenge and taking it on yourself. So I guess what was the driver, the big driver for you doing that and just not being like, I'm just going to find somebody to go do this crappy part for me.
Yeah. And I mean, there's always things that have crossed my mind and then I'm like, I need to know this. And I think for me being that business owner, I feel like my responsibility as a business owner is also to really understand all the parts to my business and be good at those as best as I can. And I, definitely there are people out there, I'm going to have my weaknesses and there'll be people out there that will do things better than I, and there'll be a time that I definitely have to hand some of those things over and realize that to move the business forward. But I do think, if I'm ever to really oversee a business, I need to know what's going on. I need to know how those pieces move and work so that I know whether things are functioning the best that they can. So I knew it was a piece that I had to really work on and educate myself about and gain more of those skills, so that if that's the place that I get to where people are working for me and doing those sales, that I know whether they are actually doing a good job or not.
Yeah.
Right.
The leadership, right? Like
Yes.
business owners don't understand, a lot of them, that's how you lead, by doing,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yeah.
look at Bill.
Yeah.
Does everything and leads us, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's totally 1000% on that. So you remind me a lot of Paige, and we interviewed Paige a couple weeks ago. I feel
Yes.
like you both, don't you think, Bill? They kind of have like the same sort of personality,
it's
you know, and
same kind of vibe of
same kind of vibe,
people.
same kind of energy. And she was the same, like she didn't even know what objections were until
Yeah.
she came on here. But she had that challenge with like the fear one, because challenging them to get to that place and such. So like, I'm curious, like when you first, because I know I saw you on role plays, right? And I know it was like, again, for lack of a better word, it was a challenge for you to even do that.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess walk us through like the steps, like the progress and the process of how you got through that, because that's a common thing.
And I think that was a big one for me. And it took me a while, even inside the objection box, to even start handling objections. I was like, I'm not even going to go there, because that's just like a huge amount of fear for me would always come up. And it still does. It's still there. It's not like, and I know it's something that I will probably always have to work on, because for some reason, it's just something internally in me that, triggers those fears and things like that. So, I think the biggest thing was just knowing that I have to, if I want to get those goals, right? I'm not, if I sit here and kind of let that fear, same thing that I would want to tell people right on a call, if I sit here and let that fear take over, I'm not going to get to where I really want to go in the way that I want to. So that's been, I think that's been the key driver and really moving forward with that. But yeah, I mean, objections were something that I always just, I wouldn't even go there. Like, it was like they threw me objection. I was like, okay, whatever.
See ya. Let me know what you come up with.
Okay.
Let me know what you think. Yeah, I remembered you saying like your follow-up calls were just like, what'd you decide?
Yeah. So it's definitely, it's, and I still have a ton, a long way to go still. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like I've just scratched the surface in everything that Bill in the objection box has to offer, and all the, amazing coaches in there. There's still so much that I have to learn, and so much that I have to develop in my own skills. And I know that, and I'm, aware of that. But even just that little bit that I've changed has done, like, I had some huge wins in the last 6 months. Obviously, retiring my husband was kind of my big one. But as soon as I joined, like, I started, even without touching the objections, which is a key part. And, it's not to say don't do those objections, but I mean, in my first month in objection box, I went up to almost a 72% close rate. And that was just changing the front end of the call, which I know Bill always says, don't change the front end of the call first, work on the objections first. I didn't do that, because I was like, I'm not going to go to objections.
You're a rebel.
But even those tweaks, right, were just, even that made a big difference in a lot of the things that I did. And then it was like, okay, now I got to bring in the objections too. So I hit my biggest month, because I was kind of hovering around that 10K mark before I joined for quite a while. I'd been there for about 6 to 8 months. And then my first month in, I think it was the first month, or within about 45 days, I had hit 16K. So that was a huge win, and hit that, then started hitting that consistently. And then in April was when I finally hit, I think it ended up being, by the end of the month, it was like, I think 32K in revenue generated was what I hit that month. I think I had 27K cash collected. So yeah, a huge jump for me, which has meant that, like I'm on track to about double my revenue from last year, which is awesome. And it means, that many more families that I'm helping too, which is great.
And your own, obviously.
Yes. Yeah. And then obviously my own family, because we've had some big changes here too. And
you'll actually do more than double if you think about it, because you've gone from 10
almost
to 27.
triple,
It's
and
quadrupling by the end of the year.
The important thing that I want you to know about this, Danielle, is that a big driver for me when I spoke to you was, how do I help this girl buy back her time? How do I help this girl actually be the mum as well? How do I help this girl actually help her homeschool? Because the big thing for you, I remember when you were pulling the kids out of school, you weren't necessarily bought into the whole C word, and you weren't necessarily, living that traditional Canada lifestyle. You were fucking, I'm going off grid, I'm going to coach, and I'm going to train my kids, and this is what I'm going to do. And I have massive respect for that, and I truly want everyone that I work with to be able to do what they want to do in their life, and that was something that was always in the back of my mind, because I remember you're going to say to yourself, how does this fella still know your husband was a mechanic, correct?
Yes, he works on school buses. He used to work on school buses and things like that. Yeah, auto body.
8 months ago, we've never had another conversation about that, but that's stuck in the back of my mind, because that's Danielle is, and that's for me was, okay, well, let's get him out of there. But also, if you think about it, like 3x in your business ultimately means that you buy back 3 times your time, because now you don't have to work 3 times harder to make the same amount of revenue.
Correct. Yeah.
Like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because now you're more efficient. Now you have a system. Now you have structure. Now you have a team. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that allows you to do things. And like last year when we built the objection box in August, I went away to Portugal for 6 weeks, and it was just basically me going and living in Portugal and still working. Compared to this time, like in a year, what it allowed me to do, all that work has allowed me to go away, and still allow the team to step in and step up and actually run things and actually do things and actually still be there. And I'm looking at things in the background, making things align. But that again buys back my time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're on the right track and you're on the right path, and everything else that you want is going to keep moving, because you're humble enough to actually keep going. You want it because you've got people behind you that you need to support, like I do. But you also have people in front of you that you want to go and help too. And I think that's really, really important. That's what I love about you, because you want it, and it's not a case of I get to a point and then I'm done. It's like, okay, well, how do we keep growing? How do we keep helping? And how do we keep pushing things on? And that's really important for me.
Yeah. I'm huge on the growth. And I'm not that type of person to say, oh no, I got no growth to do. I know it's like, there's work to be done.
How did you end up in our little spider web as such? Because there's tons and tons and tons of, I'm not going to say sales coaching word, but there's tons of people out there that perceived can help. So how did you fall into our little spider web, I suppose?
Oh goodness. I think you actually friended me on Facebook, probably because I know, like, I have colleagues and things like that that had done work with you, that I'd been through other programs with and that sort of thing. So probably somehow through there. And I think you friended me on Facebook, and it was like, oh, okay, I'll check. I hadn't heard of Bill at that point. So it was like, okay, I'll check this out and see. And just watching your stuff was like, okay, it really resonated with me. And I'd been through a couple programs that some that specialized in sales and some that just had some sales training there. But there was just something about the way that you focused on objections really resonated with me. And I knew because again, I have a lot of that self-awareness about where some of those weaknesses are for me. And I knew, like, I wasn't touching objections. I think I told you that on that first call. I was like, I don't deal with objections, and that's a big problem. And I know it is. And I think the other thing too is not necessarily how I found you, but just, something important too was recognizing where the economy was going in the next, just right now we're in that recession. And I knew that I had to get better, or I was probably not going to be where I want to be. And I was probably going to be heading backwards because of what I wasn't doing. Right. And I knew things were only going to get harder, not easier. And I wanted to make sure that I was getting the skills to make sure that that wasn't going to negatively affect me or my family or my business. Yeah. So,
The sales calls that you do is a tremendous amount of fear. There's a tremendous amount of, let me just go and speak to my partner, because just so people understand who you actually help coach and train and, develop in people's lives is kids. But unfortunately, kids don't have X amount of dollars on a card or X amount of dollars in a bank account. You ultimately have to, be in a position where you influence the parents enough that they actually want to take care of their kid in the position that you need them to do. So for you, when I met you, I knew straight away. I was like, okay, so what you're going to get on your calls, let me just tell you. And then I just listed them all out, and you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting. I'm like, so
Yeah.
the big things are the fear. The big thing is that this is a lot of cash. Big thing is going to be, you know, let me think about it. And the big thing also is let me speak to my partner, and we're going to get back to you. So that's what we set off to do, is kind of show you how to kind of really zone in on those. And I just want to come back for a second in terms of what you said about just changing up some of the questions and actually being more direct, instead of just opening up questions without real and like any tangible outcome for the parent, without that person, you know, having that responsibility. You know, a couple of questions that I remember when we first said, I was like, well, can I ask, like, who's in the position and who's in charge of whether your son or daughter actually clears up their skin and actually can take control of their own life?
Yeah.
Things like that, just like putting the responsibility and putting that, you know, directness onto the parents rather than the child, which what you were doing. Like, it's not the child, but the child doesn't have the answers. Why? Because he's not 18. Can't make decisions, can't make financial decisions. So it's just changing that kind of stuff. What what were the big kind of things for you? You feel that kind of really helped you go from 10K up to nearly $30,000 a month?
Yeah, I think definitely like just, well, one, just dealing with the objections and starting to handle those. Again, I still have lots of work there, so I'm, you know, still scratching the surface, but I think that's been big. And the other thing is just what I'm doing in that call, like really coming across as the other thing that was big for me is, you know, and that's probably part of my personality, is I'd like to be friends with people. So it was like, I didn't want to, again, not doing the challenging and things like that was really, really hard. So just even not just in the objections, but just also in the whole frame of the call, coming across more like putting more challenging questions in there and things like that, and putting that responsibility back on them and kind of questioning their, you know, their line of thinking and that sort of thing has, I think, really helped. And I think another one too, you know, a lot of what we get taught in other things is to go and focus on that pain. And I found that was a big key one for me too, is not focusing on that pain for people, because especially, you know, there's a lot of pain with the people that I'm dealing with. A lot of them, like I get most of my sales calls, there's people crying. I've even had dads crying on my calls. So it's a very emotional thing.
No, we do have emotions. We can't actually cry.
We're not
right?
Vulcans, people. We're not Vulcans.
Yes. So yeah, so I mean, that's, you know, just I think when I came across it less from the focusing on the pain and more of like, what are your goals? It helps people really also feel supported. And I think that's been a key thing for them too, is because, you know, they want to, in a world where, in my world especially, where they're just thrown so many things all the time and they're not necessarily cared about. And one of the ways that I do, you know, the way that I run, how I coach my clients and how I support them is really from a supportive place. And they really, really like that. And that's one of the things that sets me apart. So being able to kind of align my calls with some of that too has, I think, helped. Because it's one of the things that my people really like about what I do for them. So that's been a key thing too, because the pain just brings them down. It gets them more into that fear state rather than kind of into a positive place. So that's,
and it shows you understand them.
Yeah,
you know, and they're like, this problem, I'm going to be working with this person for however long you work with them. You know, this person gets me, this person understands me. So yeah, I could see for you that being a total game changer on your calls.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, so when they come to you, they've probably done 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different things. And they've also gone to doctors, they've gone to specialists, they've gone through this, they've fucking rubbed seaweed on their kid's skin or whatever else it may be. You know, they've done all the traditional stuff. And everyone that, as I said to you, everyone, think about it, Danielle, everyone that they've gone to had the same conversation, you know, had the same conversation. So if I said to you, you have that same conversation with them, guess what they're going to do? They're going to club you in with everybody else.
Exactly.
What has everyone else done? They have failed them. So you got to come at it as a different capacity, because if you want to be successful with these people, you got to see that and they got to have that conversation, because people are making their mind up within the first 10 minutes, whether you're the girl or I'm the guy or Danielle or Francine is the person that they're going to work with. That's how it works.
Yeah, for sure.
100%, 100%. So you said something too earlier about, I love that you recognize, because I'm big about know thyself, like put the mirror to your face before you get on a call. So, this is a process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've been with us since November, right?
Yes.
You've
Yeah.
moved along, you've 3 times your business, yet you're aware enough to know there's more. There's always another step, right? There's So kind of give me like, where do you see things going in regards to like your results and your goals and such?
Yeah, I think for me, just being, I want to get to a place where I can, like, again, just even getting more time back for myself would be great. I really want to, that's a huge one for me. I have a very, very busy life between, everything that's on my plate. I have a lot on my plate. So that's always a huge one. Wherever I can kind of gain more of that is big. Potentially one day having people, do sales for me would be great. But at the same time, there's part of me too with my people, like in terms of that connection they get with me, again, because of what I'm dealing with. I think a lot of people do like that they get to talk to me, right? And they get to see me. So, I think just in terms of, I know it's stuff I just still have to work on, right? And I know that a lot more hurdles for me to get over in terms of what I have to kind of overcome even internally to really fully be present on these calls in the way that I need to. Because even though I'm doing great and, still hitting those like 60% close rates and things like that. And, 50 to 60 is what I've been at, probably at an average, but, I know there's more, right? Again, there's more families I can help. And I know that there's more that I can improve on to be in that place. So that's kind of what, how I look at it. I know I'm not, sales isn't my, and I think that's a thing. The other thing too, which, I think was an eye opener for me too, about this whole process is that I took a lot of time off this summer because it was like, hey, I can now, this is great. My husband's not working. We can actually do things. In the past, it was really hard for him to take off time in the summer because that was their busy time. And, I've taken 3 weeks off in the last 6 weeks, which that's the first time I've done that.
It's amazing.
Years. And we've never done that as a family ever. So it's only been like 1 week in the summer. But it's also meant that like I haven't done as much in some ways. So it's been, it's also opened my eyes to this is a skill. And it's something that I continually, especially for someone who's maybe not super strong at it like myself, it's something I'm going to have to continually always work on.
How many kids do you have, Danielle, actually, can I ask?
I have 3.
3 of them. Okay, how old are they?
They are 5, 8, and 11.
Okay.
Busy.
Let me ask you this: 5, 8, and 11. So they're in that really, delicate stage, I want to call it, because my little one is, I have 3, and the other one is just about 9, and they're right in that peak of time. And I look at my partner and I say to myself, the amount of time that she spends with my kids, and I'm very fortunate. I get a tremendous amount of support to go and, in my own head, take on the world. To have holidays now where you, instead of going for a week and stressing and having that anxiety and looking at the clock saying, fuck, I got to go back to work, and looking at because I've been on holidays like this, where you're looking at the price of the dinner out, because you're not just eating for one. You have 3 hungry babies now, and you and your partner. You potentially have a bottle of wine each, or not each.
Or 2.
What I was just off Francine there. Sorry for a second. And you look at that and you say to yourself, because I've been there, and it's like, oh shit, I don't know, can we go out 7 nights? Now, what you do is you've gone from having a week's holiday to having a 3 weeks holiday. And if you continue to grow and scale and build and have that success that you've always had for the last 6 or so months, you can have as much time off as you want. How does that feel for you as a mom, but also as a family? What does that look like? Because that's really important.
It'd be incredible. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's my thing is like, I want to work, but I also want to really be present with my kids. That's a huge value that I have. So yeah, just, and that's where that time thing ties in, but that would be huge. And I think the other thing too, it's, as you were talking about, going on the holidays, and you're worried about the prices and things like that. And now it's like, we can, and that was totally me in the past, to be like, okay, we can't order this or we can't order that because that's going to be too much. And to be able to take that time off, know that, it's not my super busy season where I would be stressing in the past, because it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta like make bank to just pay the bills. Be able to go on that vacation and be like, yeah, it's not a worry. I'm not worried about the money coming in. I'm not worried about, also not worried about kind of like what we're spending. Like it's a really nice place to be in when you've been more in that like fear place before. Right.
Yeah.
So it's.
The reason why I always bring that up is because I remember days like for the first couple of years of being in London, I remember looking at the price of coffee and being like, oh, I've had one already today. I don't think I can afford another. And people might laugh, they might joke, and they might say, "There's no way that that's where you've come from, Bill." But that's where I've come from. Like when I came to London, 2016, I had £3,000 in my pocket. Spent it all back in the day. This is before I even knew there was Facebook ads. I spent it all on leaflets to put in local papers to build a fitness. So for that first year, I actually, we went to Ireland just to visit my parents and stuff like that, and I actually couldn't afford Tallulah's Christmas presents. So she had a very, very small Christmas that year. So I still always, I always remember those days. And I think it's really important, Danielle, that we always remember those days, because we always know why we do it, and we always know why we stay busy, why we stay at it, and that's something that's really important, because now we know that it's not necessarily wanting to get away from those days, but what skills do we need to acquire so we don't ever go back. And I'm like, as I said, we went away last year to Lisbon for 6 weeks, no stress. Went away this week. No stress. So, but now I got my team stress, and that's what as well.
Different.
Be different stress, but the stress of looking at a fucking price of the dinner and stuff like that, that stuff goes away when you get your skill to a level where you don't have to. That's really, really nice. It's a nice feeling to go away with your kids, your partner, and not look at things and be like, oh shit, because that's not nice. That's not a nice position. So those things, like, that's what fills me with pride when I look at all the guys. That's what fills me with pride when I look at all the people we coach, all the people we've coached, hundreds of people down the line, even myself, look at and add, like, even the small things, like people, when you make money and, you do well in life, people always expect you to splurge and splurge and splurge and buy stupid shit. You're pretty much out of that kind of young space. I am too. Francine, absolutely. So we're kind of out of that kind of silliness, and it's the little things for us that make it worthwhile. Like for my kids, buying silly dresses, or buying, when you go on holidays and people, those guys going around and they have the lasers and stuff like that, and they're like 20 quid for a laser. You're like, are you out of your mind, man? But get whatever you want. I don't care. It's that kind of stuff that I really love. It's that kind of stuff that makes it all worthwhile for me. So I don't know about you. I don't know about Francine, because her kids are like 42. How old are your kids, Francine? They're easily 40 and 30, aren't they?
Not 25 and 28.
Right. So that's today's. So we're in that.
Feels like, okay, I'm only 3 years older than your kids.
We're in that bubble. We're in that bubble. Where it's the silliness, and that's what and that's really important, So look, we've taken enough of your time. I know you're busy. I know you're crazy. I got one more question for you, and then I'll let Francine ask the next one. What does your husband think about it all? What does your husband think about your business? What does he think about the success you've had over the last 4 or 5 months?
I think he's over the moon. I mean, it's been huge for our family and pivotal. We struggled a lot in the past, and now, we're in a place that it's like, hey, we don't have that struggle, so that's a really big one. And just for him, at first, I'll admit, when it was like, okay, how about you stay home? You can take on some of the homeschooling. There was a little bit of trepidation there, because he was, a little bit like me, stop working. But now he's quite enjoying it. And, he's especially after, because he's been off now since the beginning of May. So about 3 months, and now he's really liking it. And I was telling Francine before, they haven't really replaced him at the place he was at, and they have a really hard time finding people, and they're in their busy season. So they put out an SOS to him to say, hey, can you come in and help us? And he did go in, and he's helped them a little bit just over the last month, last few weeks, I guess, just going in a couple days a week to give them a hand where they need it. But it's such a different, and it's been interesting for him seeing, like, being off and then going back, and he's like, oh man, like, I'm so glad that we're in this place now, that I don't have to be in there every day, and I get to be home with you and the kids, even though I'm working, but not all the time, right? So it's great. We all get to do a lot more together. And for him just to even have that choice to be like, yeah, you want to go in and help someone, and you can. It's not like you're feeling like you're forced to when you don't really want to do it, right? So that's been a huge shift for him.
I imagine he's very proud, because I'm proud.
He is.
I'm proud. I'm over the moon. So hopefully he feels that too. Because I know, don't take this the wrong way, because I know you're fantastic girls and you've grown up in a different culture than I have. But in Ireland, the man is always supposed to be the king of the house, and brings in the food and blah 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 blah. And it's a very kind of, I don't know, caveman-esque kind of world that was born in. But there's a lot of value for me in old cultures. I still read books. I still buy CDs. I still draw with pen and paper. So yes, the world that I grew up in is a lot different than the culture or the headspace that I live by, but I also know that, where I come from in Ireland, the man is always supposed to, do X, Y, and Z. How did you guys overcome that? Or is that still something that, is still there, and we kind of have to work our way through it, or what way does that play?
In the beginning, it was there a little bit, I think, because he was, a little bit where like, oh, okay, now I'm going to be like, homeschool dad. So it was there, but then as he, and my husband's always been supportive of everything I've done, anything, and especially my business. So it's been great to have that support. And I think that that's helped, because when, we talked about that and it was like, okay, I think that, this is what we need to do. He was really supportive, even though he had some reservations about it. But now that he's experienced it, those reservations aren't there anymore. He's quite liking it. So yeah.
We all need a Danielle, let me tell you.
So he's like, this is what we're doing, kids. We're going to homeschool from 9 to 12, and then from 12 onwards, Daddy's going to the golf range. That's why he's doing it. Very good, very good. Okay, Francine, I'll leave it with you. What you got?
Yeah, so quick question. So you joined us like towards the end of last year, because I think we both kind of came on board around the same time. November of last year was when I came into this. So, I mean, did you ever think back then when you joined that by this time this year, you were going to have all this?
No.
No,
I had no idea that this is where I'd be. I mean, one of my goals was to grow my business and to see myself get better at this skill. But I had no idea that this is what it would look like. And I'm thrilled, because ultimately it's the life that I want to build. And as I had told Bill before, like, I'm that system breaker for my whole family. I don't want any of us stuck in that system and a slave to just doing whatever we're supposed to do. We want to build that life that we really want and that we love and enjoy. So that's something I want to teach my kids too, that they don't have to do that just because, society says that that's what you're supposed to do, that there's so many ways to build and create a life and do what you really love. And, and that's really, I think, helped not only achieve that, but even just being able to show them what's possible too, which is really cool.
Lead by example, right? So one last thing, what would you say to folks who, even if they don't have their own business, right? They're in sales, maybe they're like you, they've done a million different things. They're still feeling challenged. And I know you use the word scared, so I'm not putting words in your mouth around objections. What would you say to them right now about coming on board?
Yeah, dive in and trust in Bill's process and his team, because, and I think one of the biggest things for me, again, like I had done other sales programs, but one of the things was the actual support and guidance you do get, and that help through things like the role plays and stuff like that is huge. And you don't really get that anywhere else. And just the whole process and is just phenomenal. The support, the community, that's helped me a lot too, you know, and given me confidence in things as well. So yeah, I'd say jump in and trust, because you won't be disappointed.
Or you may be disappointed. I don't know. We can't.
We never disappoint.
Who knows? Danielle, you're a lady. You're
Thank you so much.
proud of.
Oh,
Someone
thank you.
we have a lot of love for, and someone who we're really, you know, I suppose, I think the big word for us is just proud. You know, we're really proud of everything you're doing, really proud of everything you want to do. We're really stoked for where you're going, you know, and, you know, yes, we can help guys, you know, buy their dream cars and, you know, buy their homes and all that kind of stuff. And that's just younger guys that want to do that stuff. Great, good for them. But what really, you know, sets it up for me is, because I'm a family man, as I always say, is being able to give the life that you want to the people that you love, you know, and that's something I really look for. And that's something that, you know, makes me more proud than my guys buying 200 grand worth of cars sitting outside like Joshie Large. You know, don't get me wrong, I love seeing it and I love doing it, and we have to get our way through all that. But what really, you know, turns it on for me is seeing what you did, you know, and seeing that amount of impact for your family, you know, and the love that you can give back, life that you can give them. So I love it, and I continue to love it, and let's keep going and keep pushing, and let's see where you go in the next couple of months, because that's going to be the next key. It's about sustaining the results.
Yes.
You know, that's
For sure.
that's
Yeah.
challenge you to do, and all the guys are going to challenge you to do. So look, a lot of love, a lot of respect.
Thank
You.
Danielle, thank you very, very much for giving us your time. I'll see you all later on. Behave yourself, Francine. Ciao.
Yes,
Bye-bye,
you too.
Danielle.
Bye, Danielle.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.